current task is to determine the implications of the ancient truth. It is not enough to go back and get all this good stuff and talk about how we did this and we did that and how great we were. We have to look at and be very, very thorough in analyzing what are the implications of our ancient and archaic truth for the now. Because if we don't do that, then our history, though revealed, becomes dead. And our history cannot be dead if we, in fact, use it in terms of drawing implications from it. It seems to me that this notion becomes important because it allows us to ask a very basic, fundamental question. And that fundamental question is, what is our reason for being in the world? That's a question we should put over our babies' cribs. And as we nurse them to development, we should be humming the tune. What is our reason for being in the world? What is the truth of our reality, and how is that truth related to the moment of our birth as a people? It is through symbolism that the ancients gave us the scripture to understand the truth at the moment of birth. It is through symbolism. It's not through literal word, it's through symbolism. And so we have to begin to struggle with understanding these sort of esoteric and metaphysical and symbolic realms. And even though they seem strange and you can make some sort of statement that you know sounds dumb, but other people think is profound because you say, I'm dealing with symbolism. But that's not the way we're supposed to deal with this issue. We're supposed to begin to try to struggle to understand what it means to be, because that beingness was established at the moment of our birth. And the ancients taught us that our beingness had two fundamental aspects. And they were really perceptual aspects, in some sense, cognitive illusions. But they were perceptual aspects. The ancients taught us that the visible realm was one aspect of being. But equally, there was an invisible realm that was the other aspect of being. And it's because we've been following gods not of our own that we've limited ourselves to dealing only in the visible. And when we talk about the invisible, it becomes spookism. It becomes that sort of like occult stuff, and we don't want to do with that. We're scientific or we're revolutionary, we're whatever, but we can't deal with that invisible stuff. But the ancients weren't talking foolishness. They were essentially arguing for us that the visible realm is the mortal, is the physical, and that the invisible is the immortal, is the spiritual. It is the visible that is thingness. It is the invisible that is no thingness. It is that nothingness, the no thingness, that is the spiritual. And our ancestors taught us that the visible and the invisible are actually one and the same, even though the invisible is far greater than the visible. What that says in sort of a very practical way is that this is me. This is me. But it is the we that is far greater than the me. That the me and the we are one and the same, even though the we is far greater than the me. We have to begin to look and conceptualize ourselves in a way that talks about that my visible me is related to the invisible spiritual we. So that as I see the black woman, I see the invisible me in her. I can't demean, dominate that which is me. As I see the black man, I can't be dissing the brother. And there's another brother. I can't be talking about there's another brother doing the problem, because I see the relationship between me and we. I see the relationship between the invisible and the visible. The symbolic is important in the ancient thinking because it really allows us to see very important laws that were governing our understanding of the world. The symbolic was a method. It wasn't just drawing sort of signs on walls and drawing images on the halls. The symbolic was a methodology. It was a method of transcribing the intuitive vision by the use of images. And the intuitive vision became a mode of investigation where the natural phenomena of the world stood as symbol to represent the invisible law that we had to understand. So when you place the hawk as a symbol The hawk simply represented our intuitive vision for understanding the invisible law that undergird our way of knowledge. It is in this basis that the ancients told us that you are able to know only that which is already innate in you. The problem for us as African people is that we don't know what is in us, and therefore we are not able to innately know it. What we do is we say, shit don't feel right. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Something's not right here. But we know it's in us, but we don't know yet how to do it in terms of a knowledge base. We haven't been able to do the analysis, and the instinct is still in us. The African instinct is still in us. We are able to know only that which is already innately in us. Now, I'm not talking about no sort of notion of a locked kind of potential where you can only do certain kinds of things. I'm really referring to the spirit that is in us is the spirit that represents everything in the universe. So the ancients were saying in symbolic language that we are only able to know that which is innately in us, and that which is innately in us is everything. There is nothing outside of the realm of African people. The ancients talked about and shared with us that the symbol should be viewed as the material, the visible representation of the immaterial. It is probably why, and this instinct notion is important, it is probably why African people pay so much attention to our appearance. Even to the point when we can call in our own memories how mamas and daddies would not want the children to be going out looking ashy or looking disarrayed and looking unkept, because they understood that the material, the visible, represented the invisible qualities and functions found in the universe. So if you looked raggedy, if you looked unkept, then you were giving a statement in symbolic methodology that said your essence, your nature was to be nothing. And so even though our grandmamas and grandfathers wouldn't talk about ancient Kemet or talk about being African people, they were engaged in a praxis that demonstrated they understood intuitively, innately, all that there was to know about the universe. And as they polished us up, literally put Vaseline on our first day of school. Didn't have no Vaseline, you'd look over your shoulder and get a little lard so no one see it and use that. But they polished us up and sent us off to school because they were making a statement. They were making an ancient African statement of praxis that said, if my child is glowing, is visibly demonstrating the spiritual essence of power, there is nothing that he cannot or she cannot accomplish. And so they expected excellence from us because they had already manipulated and engaged in the African praxis of symbolism. It is in this context that we go to the ancient texts and we even see not only the symbolic but the language that teaches us that it is our way, the way of the ancient African mind, that allows us to begin to talk about understanding our way. It is from the book of Knowing the Evolutions of Ra that the god Nebuchadnezzar records the creation of the birth of the gods. And it is stated, or it is said, I am he who evolved himself under the form of the god Khepera. I, the evolver of the evolutions. Think about that statement. The evolver of the evolutions. You can't be no more cause than that. I mean, if you are causing the cause, then you it. So we have to begin to look at and understand what our ancestors were saying to us. I, the evolver of the evolutions in the developments which came forth from my mouth. No heaven existed, which came forth from my mouth. We can go quickly to West Africa and Central Africa and see the importance that African people placed on the power of the word, the nomo, that the word itself, the hearing of the word creates energy, creates heat. If you hear someone talking intensely, you get warm because the nomo is power. And the ancients said thousands of years ago that I am the evolver of the evolutions and developments which came forth from my mouth. Take care in what we say to each other. the evolver of the evolutions and developments which came forth from my mouth